Good afternoon, everybody, and on behalf of Reddington, welcome to our third Manager Forum. I'm so happy this room is so full. Pete was just telling me that 3 years ago we did our first one. I think we managed to cram it into 20 people at the 8 Club, is that right, Pete? Something like that. So some of you will know us well, some of us won't know us at all. And my job is to introduce the proceedings today. I'll tell you a little bit about Reddington, a bit of background information, and then tell you a little bit about how we work before I hand over to Pete and the rest of the team. So I know people are fully aware of this, but the Reddington story started in about May '06. And there was just 2 people at the time, Rob and Dowd, many of you will know, and 1 client. And boy, what a client to win, your first client, the Royal Mail Group. I think they thought it was going to be easy after that. Actually, it was a bit more difficult, perhaps, than they thought to get the second client. But starting off with £20 billion of assets isn't a bad start for a consulting business. What did they want to do? Well, they expressed it quite simply, to solve the pension crisis. And perhaps starting with a blank sheet of paper in May '06, that was quite fortunate. There was no legacy position or anchoring to any of the things that some of the consulting industry had been focusing on prior to this time. And I think they found that to be quite a material advantage. So moving forward, where are we today? We think we're up to about 78 people. It changes all the time, but that's the last count. We've got our newest employee on the left-hand side of the front row. Lydia joined us today, in fact. She's going to be heading up our DC efforts. We're expecting to grow to about 130 people by 2020, roughly speaking. That's not a hard and fast projection, but you can see the sort of direction of travel. So quite a rapid growth story. And in terms of what that means from our clients, I'm sure you will do the same thing. There are lots of different ways you can count this. I think this definition is based on anyone who paid us any money in the last 2 years. But in fact, what it means 55 clients in total. And we've got them broadly divided there into 2 categories. You can see on the left-hand side in the red colors, we've got pension-related clients, and gray on the right-hand side, non-pension. I suppose if we have a core business today, it is our defined benefit trustee work, where we're presently appointed for 24 full advisory mandates. In fact, I just came back from the first meeting with our newest client this morning out in Watford. We're very happy to work on a project basis with people. We think that's a great way to get to know people. And we've got 9, on that division, 9 clients. And we're also very happy to work with sponsors, although they're quite a different sort of engagement from the trustee side. You probably can't quite see those bubbles from the back. I don't know if you can, but the large ones here, you can probably read them. They're 10 billion plus. And the small ones are around 500 million. If we have a sweet spot, it's probably in the 1 to 5 billion area, but I wouldn't want to be that too hard and fast to rule on that. And on the right-hand side, 12 non-pension clients. And I can tell you about one of them. It's in the public domain. It's St. James's Place. We're very, very proud to have been appointed to work alongside them, and we've had a lot of success, and indeed working with some of you in the room, building funds for them. And it's quite amazing how much money that organization can bring in. 2 funds, was it, Pete? 2 funds launched about a week ago. Enormous inflows, quite astonishing. So that's our client base. How do we operate the firm, and what's the relevance of this to you? So at the core of what we do is our investment committee, and we've set this thing up so it can meet weekly, as well as meeting on an ad hoc basis by email. The 5 members of it, you can see there, Phil Rose on the left-hand side of the picture is our CIO. Then you've got Pete Drvienkovic, who I hope many of you know, who's our head of manager research. He's in the front row on the left here. Dan Mikulski is sitting next to Pete, who'll be speaking later, who's our co-head of ALM and investment strategy. Stephen Yang works alongside Dan in that role, and then myself as head of the investment consulting team. What do we do? Why do we meet so frequently? Essentially, all of our key work around asset class modeling, in terms of risk modeling, our expected returns, and critically, I think, from your perspective, our manager research lists are approved and very much scrutinized by this committee. It meets, as I said, every Friday, and we found it to be a very effective governance process. It enables us to make decisions really quite quickly. Sadly, from time to time, from your perspective on the manager side, it means we can move quite quickly to terminate manager from our manager research lists, which we have done a few times recently. So the last part of the equation really is our investment principles. And this is something we distilled out of the work we've done in our investment committee for 9 years. And we thought it'd be useful to try and really crystallize them, write them down. They are in the public domain, but we haven't actually presented them to the manager community before now. There are 20 of them. I'm not going to go through that in detail because I know I'm keeping you away from some refreshments later on. But I think it's important to set the scene, which is that, actually it's not an investment principle, that we actually have decided that we're not going to go into fiduciary management. I think this is very important in our relationships with both our clients because of the conflict issue, but also the asset management community in the sense that you needn't feel there's any threat from us as a potential manager competitor. But picking on a few of these principles to help you understand how we work. Here are all the 20, sorry. There's investment strategy, expected returns, risk management, and strategy implementation. I'm going to pick on number 1 to start with. If we have a secret sauce, I'm not sure we do, but if we do have a secret sauce, it seems to be that we're able to help our clients really nail down their objectives. This might seem very fundamental, but it's surprising how infrequently this happens. And in particular, we feel they should have very clear constraints, including a risk budget. And the work that we'll do in the first few months of an engagement will be nailing this down. And what it looks like is very simple. This is it, really. It's just a one-page document where we set out 4 key areas. Investment objectives, typically some kind of funding objectives. From that, we work out what return do we need to achieve to hit the objective. A risk budget, it's very important, we think, for clients to think about having a risk budget and then allocating it across different types of risk appropriately. Hedging is critically important. We will make sure that our clients set out a very clear statement of a hedge strategy. And then finally, what other constraints are there? Not every client wants the most complex thing. Not every client wants the most illiquid thing. Everybody needs liquidity. Everyone needs collateral. So number 5 is another one I thought was pretty relevant for this room. We don't think you in this room can really deliver a successful outcome on your own. It's good if you perform well, but ultimately it's the asset class that really drives the strategy. So we're always going to work to put asset strategy in place first, and then we're going to find managers who will deliver that asset allocation. And very much forefront of our minds when we're sending work Pete's direction is not to go and find the new manager who's going to shoot the lights out with, I don't know, Brazilian gold mines was mentioned today. I don't know if that's a good strategy or not, but it feels a bit racy to us. Let's find a strategy and then find a manager. That's how we think about things. And then can't really have a conversation with a room full of asset managers without mentioning costs and fees. We are perfectly willing to pay the right fee for the right manager. We're not looking for a race to the bottom. We're not going to always go for the cheapest strategy. But if you do feel you're more expensive, then you've really got to find a way of differentiating yourself and convincing Pete and his team that you're a differentiated offering that's worth paying a bit more for. And you've really got to make sure our clients believe that they're going to get value for money. And you're going to be hearing quite a bit more about the way that the manager research team integrates with the strategy as we go through the subsequent presentations. We'd have a slide in about our values, which we decided to take out, but one of them is very much to do with openness. And you'll find most of the way we think about the world on our website. And one of the things we want to get across to you today is how we work in terms of evaluating and selecting managers. It's extremely important to us that you feel that you understand how we've evaluated you and how we've reached our conclusions. And I think Pete will spend a bit of time on that. So, the remainder of my speech is really about telling you what the rest of the day holds and the arrangements later on. I suppose the highlight of the development of our work since we last met was the fact we've got a couple of people in there you might not expect to see. So Nick Samuels joined us a few months ago. He works in active equity. Probably not something we have much of a reputation for. So it's definitely a big step forward for Reddington to move in there. And historically, I think we've spent very little time looking at property as an asset class. Kate has very bravely stepped up to start looking at property, and we've done some work in that space recently. So 2 areas which perhaps you wouldn't have expected to see from Reddington. Moving through the rest of the session, you'll hear a bit more from Pete and Mitesh. They're spending a bit more time, and then a wrap-up and Q&A at the end. And actually, one of the things I forgot to mention when I was explaining to you about our investment committee was 2 names that are deliberately not on there are our co-chief executives. And the reason is very simply that they also, as you're probably all aware, co-founders and co-chief executives of our Mallow Street business. And we decided that it would be a very poor idea to have the two working together in the investment committee. We want to keep them completely separate when it comes to any kind of manager appointments. And I was reminded by that because of the Q&A that's coming up at the end. If you do want to ask any questions about such matters, we're more than happy to take questions. Now, for those of you who know us well, we do like to party. 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. drinks are on us. Is that downstairs? Where is it? Downstairs. And then for the stalwarts who want to keep going, after party at the Theodore Bullfrog, just around the corner, I'm reassured that is a very good venue to keep going later on. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Pete, who will take you through the next section.